The Valyrian scout ship Meritorious Doubt drifted helplessly through the void between stars, its plasma drives guttering like dying candles. Lieutenant Commander Thaxis Vaughn stood rigidly before the command console, 4 of his 6 appendages twitching with poorly concealed anxiety. The ship's ambient light had dimmed to emergency levels, casting his silver-scaled skin in an ominous crimson glow. "Status report," he demanded, his voice resonating through his thoracic chamber with a distinctive harmonic quality. Navigation Officer Peldrax looked up from her station, her bioluminescent facial markings pulsing with distress. "The quantum drag net has completely enveloped U.S., Commander. The Morkothy warship is maintaining position just beyond weapons range." The view screen confirmed their dire situation. The predatory silhouette of the Morkothy vessel hung against the starfield like a talon poised to strike. The Morkothy, evolved from apex aquatic hunters on their homeworld, had expanded across 3 sectors with relentless efficiency. Their philosophy was simple: inferior species were prey. "Communications?" Thaxis asked. "Still functioning, but they're jamming long-range transmissions," replied Communications Specialist Imbue, her translucent fingers dancing over holographic controls. "We cannot call for reinforcements." Tactical Officer Ruvik, a stocky Valyrian whose exoskeleton bore the ceremonial etchings of 17 successful campaigns, looked grimly at his display. "Their boarding shuttles are preparing to launch. Standard Morkothy protocol. They'll harvest our biological material for sustenance and strip our technology." The crew exchanged silent glances of despair. Valyrians were known throughout the galaxy as skilled diplomats and scientists, not warriors. Against the Morkothy, they stood no chance in direct combat. "There might be a way," whispered Medical Officer Nix. Her voice was barely audible, as if she feared speaking the thought aloud. All eyes turned to her. Unlike the others, Nix had spent time at the Galactic Hub, interacting with diverse species from across known space. "The research outpost at Proxima Librae," she continued, her crystalline eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "They have a human." The command deck fell silent. Even the ship's ambient hum seemed to quiet at the mention of that species. "Impossible," Ruvik growled. "Humans are restricted from this sector by galactic treaty." "The dangers. We face certain death regardless," Nix countered. "I've studied their physiology, the stories about them. They're not mere exaggerations." Thaxis's secondary breathing filters flared with indecision. Humans were relatively new to interstellar society, yet they had quickly gained a reputation that bordered on mythological. Their homeworld, a deathscape of extreme environmental variations, had forged them into something uniquely terrifying. Endurance predators with problem-solving capabilities that bordered on prescient. The Morkothy encountered humans during the Orion conflict, Peldrax noted quietly. They withdrew from 3 conquered systems afterward. No official explanation was ever provided. Thaxis made his decision. Specialist Imbue. Establish a directed narrow-beam transmission to Proxima Librae. Security protocols override Epsilon 9. We are invoking Emergency Statute 17.3. As the ship's systems redirected precious power to the communication array, Thaxis wondered if they were merely trading one doom for another. The Morkothy would harvest their bodies, but who knew what a human might take from them in exchange for salvation? "Transmission active," Imbue announced. "Response incoming." The holographic display flickered, and a figure appeared, bipedal, smooth-skinned, with a disconcertingly symmetrical face and exposed dentition that resembled a predator's threat display. The human smiled. "This is Specialist Cairo Blackwood of Proxima Librae Research Outpost," the human said, its voice lacking the harmonic modulations common to most spacefaring species. "I received your emergency signal. Please identify and state your situation." Thaxis stepped forward. "Lieutenant Commander Thaxis Vaughn of the Valyrian Scientific Corps. Our vessel is trapped in a Morkothy quantum dragnet. Boarding imminent. We require immediate assistance." The human's expression changed subtly. Nyx, watching closely, recognized the micro-expressions from her xenobiology studies. Pupils dilating, increased blood flow to facial muscles, a minute elevation in respiratory rate. The human was excited. More coffee, you say? Cairo's lips pulled back further, revealing more teeth. I can reach your coordinates in approximately 43 minutes using the research outpost's emergency shuttle. We have perhaps 30 minutes before they breach our hull. Ruvik interjected grimly. The human seemed unconcerned. I'll need you to transmit your ship's technical specifications, particularly your airlock systems and internal atmospheric composition. As Imbue complied with the request, Faxis leaned toward Nyx. What have we done? He whispered. Given ourselves a chance, she responded, though uncertainty threaded through her harmonic tones. The next 28 minutes passed in tense preparation. The Morkathi vessel launched its boarding shuttles, 3 predatory craft designed to forcibly attach to the meritorious Doubt's hull. The crew armed themselves with the ship's limited defensive weapons, mainly research tools repurposed for combat. First breach detected in cargo section, announced Ruvik. Second breach in progress near engineering. The ship's internal sensors showed the Morkathi boarding party advancing methodically through the lower decks. The invaders moved with practiced precision, their bio-armor glistening with adaptive camouflage patterns. Still no sign of the human shuttle, Peldrax reported anxiously. No unusual sensor readings at all. They've reached Deck 3, Ruvik updated. 5 minutes to command deck breach. Just as despair began to settle over the crew, a peculiar alert sounded from Imbue's station. Commander, External Airlock 2 has initiated an opening sequence from the outside. That's impossible, Peldrax countered. Nothing could approach without triggering proximity sensors. The command deck's secondary display activated automatically, showing the interior of External Airlock 2. A humanoid figure in what appeared to be utterly inadequate protection gear was manually overriding the lock mechanism. By the stellar ancestors, breathed Ruvik. How did it even reach us through the quantum dragnet? Before anyone could theorize, the ship-wide communications system crackled to life. This is Cairo. I'm aboard. Your life support systems are remarkably similar to standard Galactic Confederation designs. Very hackable. The human's voice contained an element the Valyrians' universal translators couldn't quite interpret, something their species had no context for. It was, Nyx would later explain, what humans called humor in the face of death. The Morkathi have breached Deck 2, Faxis informed their unexpected ally. They'll reach command in minutes. No need to wait, Cairo replied casually. I'm going hunting. Recommend you seal all compartments and ignore any sounds you might hear. Morkathi have excellent hearing. I plan to use that against them. What followed would be discussed in hushed tones among the crew for years afterward. The human moved through the ship like a phantom, using the ventilation system in ways its designers never intended. The Valyrians monitored the ship's internal sensors with growing astonishment as, one by one, the Morkathi life signs began to wink out. The pattern was bewildering. The human wasn't even engaging them directly. It was separating them, isolating individuals from their hunting packs, creating confusion and disarray among creatures that had evolved as coordinated predators. 3 hours later, the command deck airlock hissed open. The human entered, now wearing pieces of Morkathi bioarmor, haphazardly attached to its original environmental suit. Dark splashes of Morkathi ichor covered its exposed surfaces. Most disturbing to the Valyrians was the human's physical state. It was breathing heavily, sweating profusely, yet its facial expression indicated what their xenobiology databases identified as exhilaration. Ship's clear, Cairo announced, casually dropping a Morkathi neural disruptor onto a console. 27 hostiles eliminated. I also liberated some interesting technology from them. Faxis found his voice first. How? How did you defeat an entire Morkathi boarding party and reach our ship undetected? The human's expression shifted to something more contemplative. Your distress call mentioned Morkathi. I've encountered them before. A shadow passed across Cairo's features. They raided a civilian science outpost in the Procyon sector last year. By the time military response arrived, they'd processed everyone aboard. Cairo gestured to the view screen where the Morkathi warships still loomed. As for reaching you, simple physics. The quantum drag net only affects powered propulsion systems and energized materials. I modified the shuttle to go ballistic after initial acceleration, shut down all systems, and used a sealed pressure suit for the final approach. You drifted through space, deliberately? Nyx asked, mandibles clicking in astonishment. For approximately 18 minutes, the human confirmed with a casual shrug that belied the suicidal nature of such an action. Now, about that warship. They'll realize something's wrong when their boarding party fails to report in. Ruvik studied the tactical displays. Our weapons are insufficient to penetrate their shields, and our engines cannot break free of the drag net. The human walked to the engineering station and began interfacing with it, fingers moving with surprising dexterity. I need access to your gravitational stabilizers and power distribution grid. Hesitantly, Thaxis authorized the access. What followed was a masterclass in improvisation, as the human reconfigured ship systems for purposes entirely outside their design parameters. The Morkothi use a bioelectric communication network within their vessels, Cairo explained while working. Their quantum drag net operates on similar principles. If we generate a precisely modulated gravitational pulse using your stabilizers, we can create a feedback loop in their systems. That would require more power than our reserves can provide, Peldrax objected. The human's expression shifted into what the Valyrians would later learn was a grin, an expression with complex cultural implications spanning from friendship to predatory intent. That's why I brought these. Cairo produced several Morkothi power cells retrieved from the boarding party. Their own energy signatures will make the disruption even more effective. 40 minutes later, the reconfiguration was complete. The Morkothi warship had moved closer, clearly suspicious about their boarding party silence. Initiating pull sequence, the human announced, activating the makeshift weapon. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The quantum drag net collapsed as the Morkothi ship systems went into catastrophic cascade failure. Their shields flickered and died, leaving them vulnerable. Now, Cairo said with quiet intensity, we have options. Your weapons are now effective against them, or we can leave them disabled and call for Valyrian reinforcements. Thaxis and his crew exchanged glances. The ethical choice seemed clear: disable and capture rather than destroy. But before Thaxis could respond, the human added something unexpected. If you're considering mercy, understand this. I accessed their ship's database through their boarding party's neural links. This vessel has processed 14 civilian research outposts in the past solar cycle. Thousands of lives from various species, consumed. The command deck fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Thaxis straightened to his full height, his decision made. Specialist Cairo Blackwood, on behalf of those who can no longer speak for themselves, I authorize weapons release. The human nodded solemnly and targeted the Morkothi vessel's primary power core. A single sustained burst from the Meritorious Doubt's scientific research lasers, now repurposed as weapons, pierced the unshielded hull. The Morkothi ship erupted in a silent blossom of blue-white energy that quickly faded into the void. In the days that followed, as the Valyrian vessel limped toward home with their unlikely savior aboard, the crew learned much about humans. They learned of Earth's brutal evolutionary crucible that produced a species capable of turning anything into a weapon, of treating lethal environments as challenges rather than barriers. They learned of human persistence, creativity, and their peculiar moral framework that balanced terrifying efficiency in combat with profound capacity for empathy. Most importantly, they understood why the Morkothi, apex predators of the stellar reaches, had withdrawn from human-adjacent space without explanation. It wasn't merely fear of human violence that deterred them. It was the recognition of something the Morkothi evolutionary path had never prepared them for. A predator species that hunted not primarily for sustenance or territory, but for justice, a concept so alien to them it might as well have been magic. As the Meritorious Doubt finally docked at Valyrian Prime, Thaxis found himself standing beside Cairo before the High Council, explaining their encounter. When asked why a human would risk everything for a species they barely knew, Cairo's answer was deceptively simple. In the vastness of space, we're all alone together, the human said. Predators understand only strength and fear. But there are better ways to exist among the stars. The Valyrian High Council, impressed by both the human's actions and philosophy, established the first formal diplomatic relations with Earth that day. And throughout Valyrian space, the story spread of how, in their darkest hour, trapped and desperate, they had called upon the one being the Morkothi dreaded, and found not just salvation, but a future where different species might stand together against the darkness between stars.